Do you know what happens when a cat goes senile? The story we would like to tell today describes in detail how this woman's cat got older and the unforgettable moment in her life when the cat went away. I lost my beloved Rabbit a year ago, and the pain is just as sharp now as it was then. We've always had several cats, but Rabbit was my kitty, and she considered me her human. She was smart, funny, temperamental, pushy, opinionated, and demanding, especially when it was bedtime and I was taking too long to get into position so she could curl up next to me. Flashlights drove her mad with joy. I just had to show her one and she'd go on high alert, ears perked, eyes wide, whiskers twitching, engine revving, waiting and watching for that little circle of light to start dancing around on the carpet. She'd run herself into exhaustion and then just lay there, panting, a look of pure contentment on her face. She lived up to her name and would burrow into or under anything she could. Blankets, laundry, coats on the couch. If there was a lump or fold on the bed, we knew to check first before sitting on it, because 9 times out of 10, she'd be under it. She got sat on a lot. She'd yowl and scare the living bejesus out of us, but she never stopped doing it. She loved catnip, but only as a snack. She never got high. But if I sprinkled some out for the boys, she'd crouch down over hers and scarf it down. If I sat down, my lap was hers. I was gone for a week once visiting family, and my husband said it was business as usual around the apartment, but the moment I walked in the door, she was on me like a tick. If I sat, she demanded my lap. If I lay down, she demanded my stomach. If I left the room, she'd follow me, meowing very angrily. But over the last year of her life, I came to realize that something was wrong. When we called the cats to come eat, she was usually up and in the kitchen like a lightning bolt. But she started to just stare at me as if she didn't understand what I was saying. Then you could see the light bulb go on, and she'd jump down from the bed and trot off to the kitchen. She'd come into a room and suddenly stop, as if she didn't know where she was or why she'd come in. She started getting lost in the 4-room apartment she'd lived in her whole life. I'd hear her crying from the other room, go out to see what was wrong, and find her halfway into the closet, unable to find her way out. She'd go under the bed and meow. Just meow. She started staring at her food dish while food was in it, or stare at the water dish, or just sit and stare. She started doing the sit and stare or wander around dazedly a lot, and it was killing me, and it was easy to see that it was getting worse. Sometimes when I held her, I could see that her gaze was unfocused, and she was just looking at nothing, not registering anything. Then she'd look me in the face, and I could always tell the moment she was back, because she'd get that look of recognition and would meet my eyes and sometimes start to purr. But then she'd drift away again. We took her to the vet to be sure, but it was quite clear that she was senile. But she was pretty healthy for a 17-year-old cat, so we took her home to do the best we could for her. A week or so later, I realized it was a mistake because she was now in a constant state of either confusion or fear, or not there at all. So we went back. I left the carrier and just carried her, all bundled up in a blanket, so at least she wouldn't be scared and confused at being in that despised thing, and she'd feel my warmth and heartbeat. I remember being there in the car, holding her, watching her gaze just drift around. Then she'd meet my eyes, and I'd exclaim to my husband, "There she is!" I'd tell her I loved her, and that she was a good girl, and the prettiest cat in the world, and she'd hear it, and then be gone again. I don't think I ever cried so hard at losing a cat than I did that night. I desperately didn't want her to be afraid, but I also desperately wanted her to know that we were there. It was a double-edged sword, because if she was lucid enough to know that we were there, then she'd also be lucid enough to know she was at the vet's. At the end, we just stayed close to her and petted her and talked to her softly. And when it was over, I cried so hard I almost threw up. The vet let us stay alone in the room with her until we felt ready to leave. And it took me about 30 minutes before I was calm enough to finally let my husband guide me out of the room. I made the vet promise that she wouldn't be left alone in the room because I couldn't bear just walking out and leaving her there bundled up on the table. A vet tech came in just before we left, and it made it easier. We've lost several cats due to their failing health, but oh my God, losing her that way just devastated me. It was so unfair. She'd been the liveliest, cleverest little cat I'd ever had, and it just seemed wrong that it wasn't her heart or her kidneys or cancer that took her away. She should still be here, right next to me while I'm on the bed typing this. I still cry when I think about it and think about her. Losing a pet is painful, and sometimes you feel alone because people who don't have pets don't understand. It's even worse when someone becomes offended that I dared compare the heartache of watching my cat go senile to the heartache of watching a person go senile. I haven't lost a person that way yet. I hope I never do. But losing anyone that way, watching them fade away, forgetting about you, forgetting about being loved and cherished, not being able to make that connection again, is painful beyond words. It doesn't matter if they're on 2 legs or 4. Animals, My Love would like to spread the animal love to everyone by sharing meaningful stories. So if you have any stories like this, please leave your comments below or send them to us at this email, animalsmylove999@gmail.com. Thanks a lot and have a good day. Goodbye.